My family moved into our current house back in 2000. I was 10 at the time, and nothing really seemed out of the ordinary. I heard a lot of ghost stories as a kid, but with no first-hand experience to go on, I didn't really believe them. Not long after my youngest brother came into the world, my grandmother fell ill and had to be given hospice care. She stayed in our house to be close to the family and passed away shortly before my 11th birthday. After she died, something happened to our house, where there had never been so much as a creaking floorboard. Out of nowhere, the night was suddenly filled with noises. My siblings swore they saw shadows slinking along the walls or flickering in corners. Objects would disappear and reappear in unlikely places. Motion sensor toys would malfunction. Mom would hear someone talking in another room, only to find that she was alone. One night, as we lay awake talking, my brother and I heard a loud crash from our closet. My first thought was that a shelf had collapsed, so I opened the door and turned on the light. Nothing was out of place. Despite this, I still chalked everything down to an overactive imagination. However, one night, when I was 12, I lay in bed, the only one in our house awake. I've always had trouble falling asleep. Suddenly I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye and turned to see the shape of a tall man lurking in the doorway. The hall behind him was too dark for me to make out any detail, but I assumed it had to be my father trying to scare us. I wish that had been the case. In the blink of an eye, this figure was no longer in the doorway, but looking down on me from the side of my bed. There was more than enough moonlight pouring in from the windows to illuminate his features, but he had none. He was only a shape, nothing more. Too terrified to scream, I felt positive whatever this thing was would try to hurt me if I called attention to it. For the longest minute of my life, it loomed over me until, just as quickly as before, the figure shifted back to the doorway, where it turned slowly and drifted into the hall. I tried to regain my composure, not sure what to think. Had I imagined it? That's when my younger sister screamed from down the hall. My parents burst from their room and threw on every light in the house trying to figure out what was going on. My sister sobbed uncontrollably as she described waking up to see a shadowy male figure standing next to her bed. It had watched her and drifted slowly towards my baby brother's crib before disappearing altogether, she said. The thing about him that bothered her the most? He had no features.
Hi, I'm Jamie Markey.
Oh, that voice, good Lord. And I'm Michael Tatum. And this
is Ghoul Intentions.
Oh, we fucking nailed it.
We did it.
I'm so proud of us.
We did it.
That
may never happen again.
Probably not. But that voice, your voice is...
It's a little husky, isn't it?
Even more sultry than normal today.
Right. I had a session this morning.
Those will do it.
For a video game, and I did a lot of screaming and
for
shouting.
A video game?
A video game.
Screaming?
I know.
What are the chances?
I know. So I shredded my voice. And they were like, what else you got to do? I was like, oh, just record the podcast. That's all. It'll be fine. Everybody will love it.
That's the ugly truth of this business. And
that's true.
The grosser you have to sound in the booth, the much sexier it makes your voice sound later. Right. For a little while.
If only I could.
Until you lose it altogether.
I know. Tomorrow I'll be back to normal. But right now I just want to do all of the commercials because they want it to all to be like raspy and textured. Yeah, and my normal voice isn't raspy.
Stroke awareness or something like you need like.
I know. But it is me.
I didn't mean that to be sexual.
Stroke awareness.
Stroke awareness.
I mean. I had a joke this weekend that I texted Jack. It's the palsy. Yeah. My friend Amy she was like, it's a thing where you're like, and I was like, a stroke? And she goes, no, palsy. And I was like, oh, the palsy. It's a cover band. They cover the Strokes. Thank you. This is the thing. Jack and I do that where he'll say something and it sounds like a band name, and then I talk about who they cover.
That's pretty good.
It's always a cover band. And
it's not to be confused with the Verve.
Right. No.
Or Panic at the Disco.
Oh my
It's a different kind of shake.
Yeah.
I still think it was Picnic at the Disco. I'm thinking
that's the cover band.
That's the cover band for like 30 years from now.
Right. Picnic at the Disco.
It'll be Picnic at the Disco.
And they do like state fair stuff. That's That's what it'll be.
I love this.
So we're here we're doing our podcast.
Yes, what's our title today?
Today's title is The Shadow It Casts. It is from Unholy by Neil Shusterman, and the entire quote is, I love it. How do you judge the brightness of a light when you are the source? A spotlight can never see the shadow it casts.
Ooh.
It's good, right?
Yeah. What's it from?
It's from Unholy by Neil Shusterman.
I don't know that book.
Yeah. It's such a great line.
That's a fucking awesome line.
Yeah.
Is it a book or...
It's a book.
Okay.
It's a book, yes.
I have to check it out.
And so the reason, because I get to go first, that means then I can just drink and listen. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to start that way.
I know.
Cheers, by the way.
Cheers.
Clink.
Yes. Clink. Clink. There's the copper not clinking at all.
Kind of clunks, but it's a satisfying clunk.
Clunk. So we are going to be getting the girls this weekend for the summer. It's very exciting.
I'm so looking forward to seeing the little monsters again.
I know. They're so cute. They're so sweet. They're good girls. But when we drive, I usually will have an audiobook for them to listen to. And recently, last summer, they started listening to Serafina and The Twisted Cloak, I think is what the first book is called. And there's a series of these books. Well, the girls' names are Callista and Serafina. And I was like, what a great way to get Serafina interested in these books. It has her name in it. It's spelled differently, but it has her name in it.
That's awesome.
And it's about this little girl who lives in the basement of the Biltmore estate in North Carolina. And it's a really fun story. The girls fucking love it. We'll be going into the third book this summer. And basically it's about this girl and kind of how she's discovering who she is, what she is.
Oh.
Yeah. And she's on the lands of the historic Biltmore estate right after it was built for the Vanderbilts. They have the Vanderbilts like in the book. And
that's so cool.
I was so fascinated by the story. I started looking up some more of the Biltmore history. And I did this last year. And I thought, oh, you know what? That's got to be fucking haunted. It's huge. And it turns out I was right.
Good instinct.
Yeah. So this is the book. This is for the book, the Serafina and the Twisted Cloak or Twisted Staff, or there's a cloak and a staff and some other stuff. And they're all just really good. Kids love them. But also I really enjoyed them after they left. They didn't get to finish the second one, but I kept listening to it because I was completely trapped in. Now, I will say on the audiobook, the woman who's doing it doesn't necessarily have her North Carolina accent down until the second book. So you just have to breathe through that part if you listen to the audiobook. But the books are really good. They're super fun.
I respect an actor that tries to do an accent that they have to do on the fly.
She perfects it later, though. So I have,
so maybe she's just beginning to do it. She eased into it.
Exactly.
As an aside. So
I feel as though we're probably pickier than most people are with audiobooks. Probably. So it's really everything else she's great at.
As an aside. So Brandon and I just got back from Sheffield, UK this past weekend, and we flew Virgin Atlantic for the first time, which is easily the most comfortable, well-appointed flight I have been on in my long history of traveling by plane. And I mean, seriously, you and I both have probably been on more planes in our lives than there are fucking movies with planes in them. So
planes.
Yeah. And so they have the Virgin Atlantic safety video beforehand is this adorable animated sequence where it's like, here's a safety video, but the premise is there's a guy who's falling asleep while it's going. And they kind of mention how they have a lot of entertainment options. But before we get to that, let's do the safety video. Please stay awake. And he's falling asleep. He falls asleep and dreams the safety video, but each little segment is presented in a different genre of film style, and it's the same actress voicing all the different iterations.
That's really fun.
So one, it's like she's an old West, outlaw, and she's a British actress clearly, but her Western accent not strong. Her old American West accent, not strong. I mean,
Westworld accent.
It's adorable, but she's like, please put your tray tables up while taxiing. Like,
right, it's like a British person doing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then there's like the James Bond one where she's like, be sure that all your things are packed on. It was hysterical, and Brandon and I were just like cracking the fuck up watching this video. Yeah. I'm like, this is a great way, but I was just like, she had to do like 12 different accents for this essentially 5-minute long video.
Right.
That's quite a That's quite a haul.
It is. That's a lot.
So I respected that. And everyone thinks they're a fucking expert in accents. And the truth is, like, you try to do a British accent and then you can go to someone in Sheffield and they're like, no, you don't sound like you're from Sheffield at all. You sound like you're from London. I'm like, I don't hear the difference.
Right.
Like, yeah, because I'm not from the UK.
Exactly. Well, and that happens a lot with Southern accents. I was watching this one murder porn show, but it was done in Britain, I believe, because everything, it was in England. Everybody was British and had, British accents, but it was about nurses who kill. I think that's what it was called. And it's
I've seen this, and it's so
I think I told you about it. I was like, you have to watch it. It's
and I did, and I watched it on your recommendation.
There's an episode where they talk about this nurse in Houston who might get out of prison, and she murdered dozens of people.
Yes.
And
she's a fucking angel of death.
Yes, yeah. And it was in Houston, and because it was in technically the South, while they have a drawl on her like you would not believe. And that is just not Texas. We don't talk like that.
No.
So
Texas,
it was just, I was like, is she in Georgia? That's very far away from here.
Yeah, the accent everybody thinks about when they think of Southern is like Gone with the Wind, which is very Georgia, Alabama. But even then, it's kind of an upper class.
That's very, it's putting on. It's the transatlantic of the South.
It really is.
Yeah.
Whereas like here in Texas, like my parents are both from Texas and from different regions. My father is more East Texas. So he's got that sort of drawl where everything sort of comes out. He sounds a little bit like Sam Elliott, like beef, it's what's for dinner. My mother comes from Houston, very cosmopolitan. And so the accent is there, but it's a little more clipped. And it's that Texas housewife accent where we're just going to make sure that you hear every consonant at the end of a word that those people in East Texas just don't like to. They like to replace those consonants with apostrophes. We don't do that in East.
Right. You have to finish a word with a letter. You cannot finish it with an idea. But anyway.
Yeah. So all this to say, like,
speaking of Southern accents, the Biltmore estate. Oh gosh, did it die? Okay, good. I only have like 15% on my Kindle, which I read my stuff from. So it's gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. Okay. The Biltmore estate, Asheville, North Carolina.
All ears.
It's right outside the Appalachians.
Appalachians.
The Biltmore estate. Oh my gosh.
Just go with it. Just be.
It's not very clear. It got caught. It was like Biltmore, and it got caught in all of the shredding of my vocal cords. It got
caught in the net of phlegm in the back of your throat.
It did. Okay, so it was originally built to be a vacation home for George Washington Vanderbilt, one of the heirs to the Vanderbilt industrial fortune. Luckily for GWB, that's my nickname from GWB.
That sounds like a great, like, deli.
GWB.
GWB? We're going to go down to GWB.
GWB.
GWB. Sorry, yeah, of course, GWB.
Yeah.
Some kind of public works.
Yeah, so he was born into a filthy rich family.
Mm-hmm.
He never had to do really anything for money. Must be nice.
Oh, poor bastard.
Now, to be fair to George and his wife Edith, they seem to be actually really good humans, which for a Vanderbilt is a big, like, that's huge.
There were a lot of obstacles for them to overcome on their path to being good.
Yeah, and there's so many stories about them that are fascinating. I couldn't get into all of it. I won't be able to help myself through some of this, but yeah, it seems like they were good people and that they did genuinely love each other in a time, especially with that kind of wealth.
Where it was still like arranged marriage.
It was arranged, but they really did love each other, which I thought was very sweet. So in 1886, he traveled to Asheville with his mother. He was young at the time, 24, 25, I think. He fell in love with the mountains there. I think it's the Blue Ridge Mountains and the town of Asheville. He decided then at 26, because fuck the wealthy, he was going to build a vacation home in Asheville. In 1889, so this is 3 years later, he bought 125,000 acres and then proceeded to spend a significant part of his inheritance constructing the estate, which included building out a private railway line for construction, as well as to bring his family and guests to the grounds, which at that time period were a little too far out of town to make it convenient.
Yeah.
So, being that...
private fucking railroad.
Yeah. It's very...
insane.
And the mountains over there, And the land is very reminiscent of the French countryside as well.
Yeah.
So he didn't really know at first what kind of style he wanted to build the house in. I also, once I started getting into this, I was like, oh, I've got to do this for Michael. He's going to fucking love all this.
My nipples are already hard.
I know. So he and his architect didn't really know what style he wanted in the house. And so they took it from the countryside. It looked French. So they built it in the French Renaissance style. And it was designed by architect Richard Morris Hunt. I knew you'd know who that was. I don't have a fucking clue, but I wrote it down because I knew you would know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He built the Biltmore estate.
He did. So by the time construction wrapped in 1895, so 6 years later, right? It was 1889, right? It had 252 rooms, 33 bedrooms.
Cozy.
43 bathrooms.
Wow.
In the late 1800s. Big deal. It had running water.
Yeah.
65 fireplaces, 3 kitchens, 16 chimneys.
16 chimneys.
There's a line in The Clockmaker's Daughter where they talk about this house. It had an embarrassment of chimneys. And I love that. And that's why that makes me think of it. It had an embarrassment of chimneys.
An embarrassment of chimneys.
A 12,000 square foot carriage house for his 20 plus carriages. And the house's square feet. Are you ready? 178,926 square feet. I have 1,800 square feet in my home. And it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
I have a lovely view of downtown Dallas from my significantly less square footage.
Yeah. It was built.
But I mean, did they have dish or cable?
Right. I think they had to like go outside and do things with all their horses.
He probably built a fucking theater, a proscenium theater.
Oh, they had
on the property and just like had their own actors going, act out that thing we did yesterday.
Wait for it, because you'll find out. Keep in mind that this house was built for 3 people. George, Edith, his wife, and his mama. His mama came to live with him too because she liked the country as well.
You could.
I know. The fascia of the house. Built out of limestone.
Oh shit!
Which, if you know, we've talked about it before, but it is known as a conductor of that kind of any kind of energies.
This house already sounds like it has been built by a villain from Ghostbusters.
I know, but. The Biltmore Estate is the largest privately owned home in America. It was at the time, and it still is.
Oh, shit.
Yes. It was fixed with electricity. And keep in mind, this was unfucking heard of.
Yeah.
And in the book, Serafina's father is in charge of the electricity. So he is the electric guy and deals a lot with how the electricity works within the house and all this.
Which you had to figure out like that. It was. He was
right on the forefront. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a wilderness of trying to figure that shit out because it was new. And this is before they even decided between DC and AC/DC current. Because that was still all the rage at the time between Edison and.
And I don't know how much they hit on it. They hit on it a little bit because that part is not, factual, but I just love how they incorporated all of this stuff into the book that is real. It had heat. It had elevators, an intercom system, all of which, of course, were very rare luxuries at the time. George's bedroom, as well as his wife's, because they had separate bedrooms. It was only proper. Right. They are both located on the 2nd floor, along with many extravagant guest rooms lining the halls filled with portraits and priceless works of art. Here's the part that you'd like the best. There is a 2-story library on the 1st floor, which was George's favorite room.
You have to give me a minute.
It sits at the end of a 90-foot-long tapestry gallery and housed over 10,000 volumes in various language.
I'm disgusted.
And you have goosebumps.
And I have goosebumps. Chicken skin.
George was an intellectual man and enjoyed sitting in the library and soaking in the knowledge these books possessed. The 3rd and 4th floors housed... I know. The 3rd and 4th floors housed the servants in 21 bedrooms, as well as an observatory overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. There was.
Where did he keep the princesses he kidnapped?
I know. In the tower. There was.
Don't touch the rose in the bell jar.
Or do. There's so many roses and bell jars. We got a rose and a bell jar in every room. Okay, so there was a billiards room for men and women visiting the estate. It had a standard pool table and comfortable seating to share drinks and company. It also had a secret door in the room. No women or house servants were allowed to enter through this door, though. It led to a private smoking room for cigars and brandy, as well as the gun room where George's gun collection and trophies were on display. Can't have a woman in the gun room.
It was the man cave.
Yeah, you didn't want the bitches to bleed on anything.
It was the Gilded Age answer for the man cave.
Exactly.
I guess they're lucky it wasn't actually a cave, that he just decided to dig into the side of the mountains.
It's true. That's true. I mean, he may have done that too. Who fucking knows? Well, and that's one of the things when you look into, they built up the land so that he could look out onto the mountains more because it was kind of in a valley. And they decided he wanted to look out on the mountains, not up at the mountains as much. So they built up the land to build the house on.
They're like, what? I can imagine Hunt having like this debate with him, because everything he wants is everything that this guy wants is getting so increasingly more difficult. So he's like, okay, I can't raise it anymore without really seriously compromising the foundation, but I can give you 2 more chimneys.
Instead of 14, we get 16.
Deal.
Yeah, all right, sold.
And an elevator, okay.
So that's not the only secret passageway either. There were several. Some of them were to give guests more privacy, and other to allow servants to move in and out without ever being seen. In the breakfast room, the mansion's informal dining room, there's a camouflage door.
It only seated 80.
Right.
It's just for birthdays and Thanksgiving.
Right. It's just for small celebrations of 1,000 of our closest friends. There's a camouflage door hidden in the wall behind a table that leads to the butler's pantry. You can make out the door frame behind the 2 Renoir paintings that hang on the wall. And there's like a doorknob underneath one of the paintings.
Oh, God.
The library also has a secret passageway that leads to the guest bedrooms. A balcony wraps around the 2nd story of the library, and on it are 2 doors to the hidden hallway. The library also hides a tiny room known as the Den. The easily missed door is obscured by a carving of St. Peter the Martyr. It leads to a mysterious room that may have been used as a quiet place to read and write, a special little oasis within the giant home.
Now it's where they kept his Cessna.
That's right.
Also a very rare luxury for the time.
It's true. Very, very much so.
They were made of paper and wood.
That's his paper plane collection.
And they only went about 5 feet in the air.
Additional hidden treasures include a trap door in the floor of the winter garden where tropical plants were housed in the wintertime. I would imagine to get rid of like dying plants and
tropical plants were incredibly expensive to import. Like orchids and stuff like that were the most expensive. And this motherfucker had a whole forest of orchids.
Oh, yeah.
You know he did. And we're talking for the time, your average orchid would go for like $2,000 by that time period's money, which is like a fucking college education now.
Yes, exactly. So, okay. There's also a concealed closet in Vanderbilt's own bedroom. So there were a lot of those. And that's the ones that we know about. Who knows how many other ones are. Oh. The estate also boasts 1 underground tunnel in Antler Hill Village, which is 3 miles from the house, that used to be part of the Biltmore Dairy Barn. The stone tunnel now leads to a winery, which we'll get to some of that in a minute.
Okay.
In the basement, fuck a basement, in the first basement, there was a 70,000-gallon swimming pool with heated water and lighting, as well as a gym and one of the first private bowling alleys in the United States.
Holy shit.
I know.
Holy shit.
I know. Also in the basement were many of the service rooms. Laundry was cooked here and food prepared in one of the 2 kitchens in the basement. They even had a form of refrigeration, which was state-of-the-art for the time. They also had a sub-basement. I feel like fuck a sub-basement.
Double fuck a sub-basement. Hashtag double fuck a sub-basement.
Yeah.
It's like your basement needs a fucking basement.
It's so low and creepy that pretty much everybody who goes in there gets creeped out by it. There are pits down there for storage. So they'd put food or other storage stuff and cover it up in these pits. But from what I can tell, it feels as though there's a monster about to jump out of those pits at any moment.
Because it's a pit in a fucking sub-basement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for the monsters, apparently.
For the monsters. Like, what? Just don't mind all the piles of bones in the corner. That's
yeah, just ignore.
Just whatever. It's just, yeah.
But isn't it pretty? George Vanderbilt and his wife, Edith, basically turned Biltmore into a private museum where they hosted lavish parties and entertained guests over extended stays in the country. Wow. They were apparently very much in love with each other as well, like I said. And there are many reports of them being a well-matched couple. Like, they were known as a good couple.
Oh, that's not. That's actually, okay. Then I want them to have all these things.
I know. It's nice. Tragically, though.
Of course.
George died in 1914 at 51 from complications from appendicitis.
Damn.
Yeah. It was the surgery.
It's not terribly. It's not. 51 is a pretty good old age. It's a pretty good age by that. Maybe not by wealthy standards.
Right. She lived into her 80s.
Yeah.
I think she died at 85 or something. So she was still kicking.
Damn.
For 30 years after he died. Wow. At least 30 years.
Wow.
Shortly after his death, servants in the home noticed that Edith began spending a lot of time in the library. It was one of his favorite places. But while she was in there, she would speak out loud to George's spirit. They assumed she was speaking to someone. At first, they dismissed it as a woman in grief over the death of her beloved husband. The assumption was she would eventually heal and move on after finishing her discussions of things that she had wished to say to George, but hadn't had the time. But that's not what happened. Edith continued her daily conversations with George, and during this time, servants in the home began to notice the presence of his spirit, mostly in the library and in his favorite sitting room on the second floor. According to the legends, many of the servants heard footsteps and then saw an apparition of George around the home. Wow. She eventually got remarried and moved back to New York, but when the Biltmore it was kind of starting to need some attention, she went back and kind of created Asheville as this artistic town, because she would find local people who did crafts and arts and promote them and help them. And she was very much into creating this artistic industry within this town. And
that's fucking awesome. I love her.
Super cool chick. Yeah. Very cool lady.
Can you imagine just her life story? Can you imagine she loses the love of her life to complications from appendicitis, which is awful. What an ugly death that had to have been. Gets remarried, moves to New York, like one of the greatest cities in the world, and then is called back to the old biggest house in the world,
right?
Or in the country, certainly.
Yeah.
That's not for royalty, and has to I want someone to write about this woman's life.
They have. There are several books about it. I don't know if I wrote the one, but there is one that talks about them, but mostly her and how cool she was.
It's like, last night I dreamed of Manderley again.
Yeah, just Google books on Edith Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Because she was really fucking cool.
She sounds like a fucking badass, and I love her.
And she was always, she has two sisters, I think, and they were all very outspoken. And, especially for that time period, they were happy to be heard and not just seen, right?
Yeah.
Cool ladies. Yeah. So after she died, again, in her 80s, the stories continued as the servants reported hearing of the voices of both Edith and George now speaking to each other in the library.
Oh, they're reunited in the afterlife.
I know. It's so sweet. Reports continue today from staff and visitors who can hear voices in the library and a few other rooms. One of the other things that she was known to do during parties, he would be in the library, so she would go get him, and she'd call George. And so people can hear someone calling the name George around the library, trying to get him. He really liked to go there during storms, apparently.
Oh, fuck
and
yeah.
And so
I totally get that.
Whenever storms roll through, it's more likely they're going to see him or hear her call for him or hear the voices, because that's where he would have been during the storm.
I love that.
I know, it's so good. It's so good. The library also seems to be a center for activity. Visitors have reported feeling cold gusts of wind on the back of their neck and getting dizzy and nauseated. And then after she died, the estate passed through to his daughter Cornelia, not Nelius. Cornelius was my brother's Cabbage Patch doll when we were kids. But Cornelia.
Did it come with a birth certificate and everything?
It did. I don't remember what my Cabbage Patch was named, but I do remember what his was. I don't know.
Bob. Yours was named Bob.
It was a lit girl.
Bobette.
I have no, sure, why not? Cornelia, so she was pretty eccentric. She really fancied herself as a bohemian. I mean, 1920s, 1930s. This is when she was jamming, right? Yeah. And she married a British man, and she left him and moved to England, I think, with her sons. But this guy loved the Biltmore estate, and they were doing the dairy, the cow stuff, and he kind of just became this dairy farmer in this mansion. And loved it and kept...
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, kept taking care of it until her sons inherited it when she died. Huh. I mean, they got a divorce and everything, but he's the one that really showed the kids, how, the sons, how to really love the house. It was the husband. Yeah, so the kids had it. Let's see, where was I? And they decided to open the estate to the public in 1930 during the Great Depression, kind of as something to do, right?
Yeah, okay.
They closed the doors in 1942, though, because they needed to house some valuable artwork from Washington, D.C.
Oh,
the U.S. was afraid D.C. would be attacked, so they transported 17 sculptures and 62 paintings to the Biltmore for safekeeping. Among those were more works of Rembrandt, Raphael, and the portrait of George Washington by Gilbert Stuart. The house was opened to the public again in 1956 and put on the National Register of Historic Landmarks in 1964. The home has appeared in various films, including Forrest Gump, The Last of the Mohicans, and Patch Adams. The estate now houses an inn, a vineyard, shopping and dining options, and hosts more than 1 million visitors each year, making the Biltmore estate one of the biggest tourist destinations in North Carolina.
Fuck, that's cool. I want to go.
I know you would.
I just want to see that fucking library.
Right.
I'd be like, George, my man, my bro, my dude. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Can I just sit in here with you during a storm? Because there are few things, I should say, more amazing, more electrifying than sitting in a massive library that has a nice bay window that looks out onto a fucking stormy landscape.
Two stories.
Oh,
there's another little tidbit from the library, but I'm saving it for a little bit later.
Oh God.
Okay, so one of my favorite things.
There's a secret passage that leads to Narnia.
There might be. They haven't told that one. But one of my
favorites. The Addams Family. You pull out a book and there's a trap door that leads down to the vaults that look like the fucking Cave of Wonders.
It's worth a shot. It's worth a shot to go see.
They know. They're lying. No. They're not telling us.
Okay, so one of my favorite things that I found when I was researching the story was the story of the Halloween room in the basement.
What?
Yeah, so deep in the basement is a cavernous room with brick walls painted in brightly colored murals depicting witches, bats, and black cats. The paintings include characters from folklore, a platoon of wooden soldiers, and other imaginative imagery. The room and the murals were a mystery for years, and because it was assumed the room must have been the scene of a 1920s weekend Halloween party where John and Cornelia Cecil invited their guests to make their mark on the walls, it's referred to as the Halloween room. But it was all assumption. Until subsequent research revealed that the paintings were created in December 1925 to prepare a room for a New Year's Eve celebration. But that still didn't explain the slightly eerie tone of the murals until an obscure connection between the scenes on the walls and an avant-garde Russian cabaret and theatrical troupe called La Chauve-souris, I guess, which translate to the bat.
Huh.
I don't know how to say it, so if I fucked it up.
No, you did. You did pretty good. La Chauve-souris.
La Chauve-souris?
Yeah.
Okay. It means the bat. Whatever. It was discovered. The cabaret the cabaret was extremely popular in New York, so the Cecils were probably fans. They clearly hired artists to create their own version of the cabaret's art on the basement walls. Why? Well, after 3 weeks of painting, the Cecils hosted a gypsy-themed ball on December 30th, 1925, as part of their New Year's celebration. So can you just imagine this is a series of parties over 3 or 4 days before New Year's Eve, and it's just one different party after another different party out in the country, and you're going and... God, can you imagine?
In a house with 16 chimneys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a room in the basement specifically
for part of this party.
Oh, God.
So the Charleston Daily Mail.
It's fucking magical.
I know. It reported.
Who wouldn't want to haunt this?
I don't know. I want to haunt it.
Right.
So apparently, this Charleston Daily Mail reported that 100 guests attended the Cecils' New Year's Eve festivities. One costumed attendee, local resident James G.K. McClure recalled arriving to the basement of the Biltmore with his wife Elizabeth, armed with a guitar and an old accordion, to find a room full of all kinds of gypsy atmosphere, such as cauldrons and pots and glowing fire, all around. Enchanted by the unexpected theatrics, he wrote a detailed account of the holiday soiree to a friend, describing a gypsy dance at Biltmore House, which was the best party I have ever attended.
Oh my fucking God.
Right. Can't have a gypsy party now,
fucking
but...
Hashtag gold. No, but you could have a bohemian party.
It's true.
You
for another 40 years, then people...
What if we could like couch it and to be like, we're going to have a 1920s idea of gypsies party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to celebrate misconceptions.
Hashtag no blackface. Okay.
Please.
So more of the... That's a lot of the house. Here's some more of the haunting. Many visitors to the estate have seen an unidentified woman in black. They say she is wailing, crying as if her heart is broken. Aww. No one knows for sure the identity of the woman in black. Some who work at the house have heard crying at night and have found a diary of a woman who lost 2 young children while living in the house. Aww. Could be her, could be Edith. No one knows for sure. Yeah. People say they feel anxiety starting in the bowling alley and growing as you pass into the locker room. When they step into the pool area, many people feel as though they are having a full-blown panic attack. Wow. Most feel, at the very least, like they're being watched. A few accounts also speak of a woman in black floating beneath the water's surface. Except there's no water in the pool. Oh. So it's kind of like she's floating in this open space in the pool.
Like as though there were water.
As though there was water.
Oh.
But she's not. There's.
Oh.
I know.
Oh, what a creepy image.
I know. Some people feel a violent presence in the room. Not president.
Present.
A violent present. Woo! Surprise. A violent presence in the room and claim to hear. Even creepier, claim to hear splashing and children playing.
Ooh.
A diabolical laugh has been heard coming from the pool drain as well.
Oh, it's Pennywise.
A few have even reported as though water had been dripped onto their arms. There was a rumor that a child had been drowned in the pool, but there are no records of anything like that happening. However, rich people are very rich, so there's no telling if that stuff is... Yeah.
They slip a fiber.
I could not find anything else about 2 children dying in the house either. But again... Who knows?
Well, if it was a servant who lost her 2 children, they may not have lived with her on the estate.
That's true, too.
It's possible. I mean, it just
depends
on, like, they may have packed off to live with an aunt or an uncle so she could work.
Right.
But, because they're like, sorry, we have no room for your children in this house, all the 43 bedrooms.
We just don't have the room.
Sorry.
Yeah, so throughout the home, there are countless stories about hearing unseen party music an unseen party that never seems to end.
The eternal music. Rager.
Yeah, people have heard the sound of clinking glasses, laughter, conversations. They do hear music like kind of in and out. And several full-bodied apparitions have been seen over the years and unexplained screams have been heard. There's also said to be a headless orange cat that prowls the estate between the garden and the bass pond. Bass pond, not bass. It's all about that bass.
I'm all about that
No
bass.
kitty head. Numerous people have seen this cat.
A headless
tabby. Orange tabby.
Wow. Yeah. That's a story.
Mm-hmm. The Biltmore estate, I don't know what it is though. People just say it. The Biltmore estate does not like to discuss the hauntings at all. Ooh. They say it is not haunted. They refuse to allow ghost hunters onto the property. They are not about that life. Yes. They don't allow photography either, so it makes it difficult to find smaller ghost stories about the house. That said, I did a little digging, and there's a podcast called Laughing in the Dark where the host Sarah interviews comedians at haunted locations. Super fun.
Fun?
Yeah, and she has many episodes as well. And I found an interview she did with a man named Kelly who told her some of the experiences of the employees of the Biltmore while he worked there. So, one security guard was walking in section 6 where they store antique books and paperwork. Here's the book note for you. They have a first edition Origin of the Species. I know.
What?
I know. That's by Darwin, of course.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, that's his best work.
It's his most
it's easy. It's
well-known and controversial.
Yeah, very controversial. Still pisses people off today. That's a powerful book.
They've put that aside for abortion right now, but, in the end, it still doesn't fucking matter. But, so... Above that section is a space called the bric-a-brac area where you can access the organ. They have a full organ.
They have an organ? A fucking pipe organ?
Pipe organ for the dining area.
Of course. Yeah. A little light music while we eat.
As one does. But they also store the taxidermy animals there. Alan, one security guard, went up there during his sweeps at night. The doors are coffin-shaped. So when you open the coffin door, you have these dead animals staring back at you. Fucking nightmare. And you've got to go make sure there's nothing up there, right?
I do like
your sweeps.
The consistency and theme.
Yeah, it's very, yeah. There was one night that Alan felt someone tugging on his shirt sleeve and he looked down. There was nobody there, but he could see his shirt being pulled by something. Oh, freaked him the fuck out.
Nope. Thank you, no.
I know. Not all. That's not all. On the third floor is located the main security hub. Every once in a while, the security guards in their office will hear furniture moving around on the floor above them, which is the observatory, directly above where they are.
Okay.
When they send the roamer guard to see what's going on, so like, shh, hey, they got furniture moving around above us, go check it out. They can follow him as he walks from floor to floor on the cameras. As he gets closer to the observatory, the sounds stop. And he goes in and there's nobody there. And in my favorite bit of irony, they cannot put any cameras in the observatory. They can't observe the observatory.
Wait.
Because I guess the way the room is or something, there's no way they could do that and let the observatory be, it's an observatory, right?
Okay.
You don't want the light, you don't want, so.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
there may not be any outlets up there too.
Exactly. So for some reason, they can't observe the observatory, so they can never see what's going on.
That's so the ghosts are like, that's where we're going to hang out. It's the blind spot.
Obviously, you gotta hang out.
That's where we're going to party. I just imagine the guy like getting tugged, getting his sleeve tugged and turning around and seeing nothing there, but hearing a little whisper going, "Where's the bathroom?"
I know, right? There's supposed to be like 60 bathrooms in here, right?
One of them.
Just. Many guards
like even the ghosts get lost.
You don't know where I am. He's heard guards talk about hearing Edith's voice calling George's voice, or calling Edith's voice calling George. I don't know what I'm saying. On some days,
I heard.
You got the point.
I connected.
Yeah. On some days, the cigar room will be super pungent, and you can start to smell cigar smoke throughout that entire floor. But if you go and you smell the curtains in that room amongst the other fabric in that room, you cannot smell smoke in the fabric. It just starts to take over. One night, a cleaner refused to go into one room after walking through a cold spot that terrified him. He basically walked into a cold spot and just got terrified, just had an unexplained fear. And he reported it happened. Dread. I know, it's that dread. Yeah. He reported it happened near Edith's room. There is speculation that maybe this guy wasn't doing what he was supposed to do or wasn't doing it well. So and he was not known to be a very good person.
Oh. So maybe Edith was yelling at the servants in the afterlife.
That's kind of what it's thought, that she was like, get out of my house.
Get the fuck out of my house.
Not just, you're not doing this right, but get out, you're a bad person.
Ooh, yeah. I like that.
I know. On the other side of the state is the winery. The vineyard winery, whatever. They got a call from one of the security guards over there from the gift shop, and the guy was freaking out, and he was like, oh shit, come here. And when they got there, he pointed to the middle of the gift shop floor, and there was one single wet footprint the size of a child, a barefoot footprint in the middle of the floor. No other footprints. Nothing else went off. And the water was evaporating like normal. So it would have had to have been a child with one wet foot, not get that water anywhere else, step, and then hop somewhere else without doing it.
Not a thing. That doesn't happen.
Another guard, Scott, told the rest of the guards about a little 9 or 10-year-old girl that used to go with her mom to the dairy farm before the space was winery. Olivia was her name, and I guess Wet Feet was her game. No, I don't know. But she would play around in the fields and whatnot while her mom was working, but she had to go with her. So she'd be like, all right, go play. Well, tragically for Olivia, there was a freak stampede of the cattle, and she was killed in the stampede.
Oh, shit.
Apparently, she never left. The same guard, Scott, told this story and said he once investigated an unexplained light he saw there in the basement of the winery. So picture stone work, stone walls, stone floor, dark. It used to have this old rail system that they would carry out the cow feces. This is where, they would milk the cattle. So they would.
Yeah. So it's like the dung carts.
So picture that, right? It's dark. It's dank. It's probably doesn't smell fresh. Yeah. He was putting an epoxy coat on the floors down there. And when he looked up, he saw what looked like an LED light through a window at 1 a.m.
Huh.
He went to find it. And down the hallway, as he took 6 steps, the light moved about 100 feet. So he called out, hello?
Hello?
And he heard a little girl's voice say, Mama?
Oh.
Scott noped out of there.
Nope.
Did not lock any doors. He just left. Got in his car and drove off. He was like, I'm fucking out of here.
How you gonna be a grown-ass security guard scared of a little girl? She needs help.
I think that it's pretty easy to be scared of that. Mama?
I'm just saying. I'm like...
If you thought you were by yourself in this old as fuck house and you heard someone answer your hello to Mama.
I'm not saying I wouldn't be freaked out, but I'm saying I think eventually I'd be like, oh my God, that poor little girl.
How do you know it's not something pretending to be a little girl?
Well, how do I ever know that?
That's true.
But I would rather die being wrong.
I would rather not die. I mean, she's already dead. What am I going to do for her?
After all the ghost stories would tell, you afraid of dying? Come on, you'd get to haunt. Chances are you get to haunt the Biltmore estate.
That's true. It's not that I just would rather not. I would just rather not.
I get you. I'd rather put off that.
I have all the time in the world to haunt.
I want to build my own mansion first.
Right. That I can haunt it.
Life goal.
I'll haunt you do that. I'll haunt your mansion.
Okay, that's fine.
So the last story that Kenny told is the last story I'm going to tell, and it's about Keith, an electrician. Mm-hmm. He was riding the elevator from the basement to the clock tower. So I got in the elevator all the way up to the clock tower. He finished his work, working on the clock. He got back on the elevator to head down when he heard a little girl's voice say, going down? So he hopped off the elevator and went down the stairs. And he thought the security guards were fucking with him, right? So he was like, what are you guys doing? And Scott explained to Keith that it was just Olivia, not to worry about it. Yeah.
Sounds like she's adjusted if she can have a little fun.
She kind of has a little fun with him.
That's kind of, I like that.
Yeah. So it seems as though life goes on right alongside whatever else it is that is not alive at the Biltmore estate.
Ooh.
Yes.
We're totally fucking going.
I know. It sounds so fun.
We're going to sneak all the pictures.
Yeah. If you have stories about the Biltmore, if you've been there, oh my God, please send it. There's just not a lot online. It's probably because the Biltmore.
Well, it's part of a thing, too. They don't like people taking pictures because... from a marketing standpoint,
you're not going to want to go if you've seen it all.
More people will go if they're like they've heard stories versus seeing pictures. And two, like taking pictures, especially people don't know how to turn their fucking flash off, and eventually that wears away the colors and the fabrics, the paintings that are hanging up. Especially, it's why they don't have you take pictures in museums.
Yeah.
Because it just fades the paints out. And like imagine if you have like several hundred people going through there every fucking day.
Yeah.
Like you think your furniture gets faded after a few years. Imagine. It being subjected to all that artificial light after,
it's like 1 million people a year or some
50, 60 years.
It's ridiculous how many people go there.
Yeah. So I understand that. And good for them because I think, it's almost
it
like
the mystery going.
Keeps the mystery. And I think the memories of those people deserve a little privacy.
Yeah.
So, they gave us a beautiful estate. That's historical. Filthy rich motherfuckers, but it sounds like they were cool people.
Those two in particular
Yeah. They sound like a couple.
Apparently, the wealth only lasted a few more generations.
Yeah,
before they, lost it all.
But
he spent a lot of his money just on this house.
Sounds like
it. Estate. But she inherited the rest of his money, which was like $500 million or something ridiculous like that at the time too.
500 million is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of money now.
It could be 50 million. But I feel like it's 500. It was a lot of money.
I mean, after your first million, all the other millions are the same.
Right. I feel like that's not true.
No, it's not. But I need it to be true just so I can not stress about not having $1 million.
Right. It seems getting to that first million is easy. Let's just get to the first million. The second million is like nothing. And the third and the fourth and the 375th. It's easy.
It's like your fifth rep on a workout machine. It's like if I can get to 5, I can get to 6. And if I can get to 6, I can get to 10. There you go.
Done.
I just skip 7, 8, and 9.
But, So anyway, that's the Biltmore estate.
That is fucking awesome. And thank you. I have a story that I'm going to share with you right after I go use one of your 42 bathrooms.
3 bathrooms.
They don't know that, Jamie.
I said it earlier in the thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to pretend. They're lovely bathrooms.
Thank you. I mean, you pretty much have one to yourself until the girls get here.
It's kind of nice.
It's your own bathroom.
And then I'll make us another round of drinks, and then I'm going to tell you a story that has very little to do with wealth. In fact, it takes place under crushing poverty.
Love it. Okay.
Bye.
We are beveraged.
We are beveraged.
We are pottied.
Pottied, beveraged, and ready to dive into... Right. It's not exactly a ghost story,
right.
But it is a bit of gruesome
Horror.
History, a bit of true crime, and especially for aficionados of the time period in which it took place. I am going to implore our listeners and yourself, Jamie, to attend the tale of Sweeney Todd.
I will attend.
This was really fun, and I thought of it while I was in Sheffield because I was just surrounded by all these old buildings. Because I mean, your average row house everywhere in England is like 300, 400 years old.
Right.
So it's like, holy shit. And that's not a statistic that comes from anywhere but my own observation. So it may be total bullshit, but they sure as hell look. We would just drive down the drive from the airport in Manchester to Sheffield. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours along all these back roads. There are only 3 ways to get to Sheffield from Manchester, as our driver was explaining. And they all involve really amazing, somewhat terrifying drives through some of the most beautifully English Gothic countryside imaginable. And here's all these like stone houses, like where sheep herders live and farmers and all that. I'm just like, and these houses look, they look like Royal would live in them, of course, because they're just massive manor estates, some of them. And I'm just like, haunted. That one's haunted. That one's fucking haunted. That's haunted. There's an inn called the Fickle Mermaid. You know that shit's haunted.
Yeah.
Like it's such a step back in time. So I started thinking about that. Somehow Sweeney Todd popped in, and I was like, that's gonna be my topic. I wasn't sure it'd be that rewarding to look into because I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not a true story.
It is, though.
Well, we shall get into that.
All right.
Now, while most modern audiences are familiar with him by way of Stephen Sondheim's delightfully macabre Tony Award-winning musical, which I think we would be great in.
Oh, we would.
Personally.
Not right now. I need my voice back.
Yeah, just give it some time. You have to sing full voice with Sondheim. To generations...
Or talk full voice. Either way.
To generations of Londoners, the only boogeyman who surpasses Sweeney Todd for sheer blood-curdling depravity is Jack the Ripper.
Right.
And only then because Saucy Jack has the advantage of being indisputably real. The Demon Barber of Fleet Street made his razor-wielding debut in a series of early 19th century broadsheets. These were sensational, large-format newspapers that were cheaply produced and loved by all for their scandalous content. They were essentially the checkout aisle tabloids of their day.
Oh.
Luridly written and absolutely fucking obsessed with crime and
like
murder, both real
dime dreadful, not a penny dreadful. Right?
Well, the penny dreadfuls came later.
Oh, okay.
And we'll dip into that too. So these were basically tabloids.
Right.
And they,
Bat Boy comes over for dinner. That kind of stuff, yeah.
Kind of, yeah. And
you remember Bat Boy from this?
I do, yes. There's a fucking musical about Bat Boy.
Oh my god.
Speaking of musicals.
I've literally never put that together until just now. All right.
Bat Boy the musical. I used to have a book on my shelf. It was a big coffee table book. So while it was on the shelf, I was failing. But it was Bat Boy and others.
I
and it was
put coffee book tables on a shelf. I don't give a fuck.
I'm a rebel. I'm a bohemian. I'll go put these in the Halloween room. So the Sweeney Todd story appeared time and again in these broadsheets, and the broadsheets didn't always bother to draw a distinction between a story that was pure fucking invention or a story that was real, or for that matter, a story that started real, but that they just heaped more details on. I mean, this was long before copyright laws, so rival publications could pilfer content from each other at will, and they often invented new kind of toe-curling details to tart up horror stories that the public already knew, just so they could recycle them for the buck, and it worked.
Just like film.
Or YouTube, or
right.
anything.
So, like, the Marvel Universe. Is that what I'm getting?
So after decades spent titillating a readership greedy for homicidal mayhem, the Sweeney Todd saga became so well known that the next natural step was publication in the so-called Penny Dreadfuls, which was the 19th century equivalent of the trashy true crime paperback.
I really
a la
enjoy the
Anne
show.
Rule or Harold Schweitzer. There's so much fun.
The show, just sidebar, the show's good.
The Penny Dreadful I've only seen the first season, and I really, really liked what I see. I have a bad habit of starting shows and never finishing them, even though I love them.
That one I made it through.
It's such a time commitment.
But it just is such an enjoyable show.
It's well done, too. And they do a lot of cliched things that they somehow still make work beautifully. And I'm like, that takes almost more talent than to, come up with something original. Because
it's so different, too.
Yeah.
Right now, on TV, it's different.
So between 1847 and 1848, a serial novel entitled The String of Pearls was written by infamous duo James Malcolm Rymer and Thomas Peckett Prest.
Is it about Batman's origins? Because fucking shit.
Both of these men were infamous for brazenly ripping off authors like Charles Dickens and being none too scrupulous about doing so. Titles like Oliver Twist, David Copperfull, and Nicholas Nickelberry attest to how little of a shit they gave.
Because
there was fuck all Dickens could do about it. He's like, that's my story. And I'm like, man, sue me. Oh, you can't.
Like perfumes. The perfumes that you can go buy in shitty little stores.
Calvin Klein's.
DK and why not?
Still, they did seem to be the first to offer up an admittedly fictional take on the Sweeney Todd legend. People just couldn't get enough of the menacing throat slasher and his pastry-making partner in crime, Mrs. Lovett. Now, you'll recognize the plot, of course. A psychotic barber dispatches customers with a straight razor and expedites their remains to the cellar, #Buck-a-Cellar, by way of a special revolving chair. His neighbor, the widow Lovett, strips the bodies of meat, which she then uses as the secret ingredient in her world-class meat pies. A bright-eyed sailor, in this version, goes missing in the vicinity of Fleet Street at the height of the Todd and Lovett partnership. The pearl necklace he'd been entrusted to give to a woman on behalf of his best friend turns up at a local pawn shop. Authorities trace the hawk and ultimately discover a human abattoir in the tunnels connecting Todd's basement with the pie shop. The widow confesses and later kills herself in prison. The barber is tried, found guilty of having slit the throats of no less than 160 men, and summarily hanged. When George Dibdin Pitt adapted Pearls for the stage in 1847, Sweeney Todd's notoriety was cemented forever.
Yeah.
Now, to be sure, the Sweeney Todd trope is a hoary one, even back then.
A what one?
Hoary.
Spell it.
Hoary. It's a fancy, very British word for old.
Oh, all right.
Though it sounds like an insult.
It does. Or a compliment. It depends.
Yeah. Tales of murderous barbers, doctors, innkeepers, butchers, bakers, fucking candlestick makers go back for centuries. Because basically we're just fascinated by killers who use a respectable daylight profession to cloak their dastardly deeds.
You could have just ended that sentence after killers. We're just fascinated by killers.
But specifically ones that like,
well,
that lure their victims
trust.
with a respectable trade.
That's such a position of trust when you're getting shaved.
Well, like the killer nurses we were talking about. Like, that's a fucking nurse. And she's not supposed to kill you. That's the opposite of her job.
It's the last thing you would
expect, right?
Yeah.
Now, Lavinia Fisher is one such example. Reported to be America's first female serial killer, she and her husband operated the 6 Mile Wayfarer Inn outside of Charleston, North Carolina in the early 19th century. According to legend, wealthy patrons would be conveyed to the sweet hereafter by a bed designed to give way beneath them like a trap door and send the poor bastards plunging several floors below into a pit of spikes.
Yikes.
Her ghost apparently still haunts the tree where she was hanged.
To Charleston later.
I've been on that. Take that ghost tour. I've been on it. They will take you by the tree where she was hanged and where apparently you can walk by and certain people with guilty consciences will see her and freak the fuck out and often go into a coma.
Every single Catholic and every single person of Jewish faith.
Yeah, she has
living in guilt.
Yeah, she has quite a following. Interesting. Quite an afterlife insta. Hotel California, the song by the Eagles, has its roots in an odious Wyoming legend based in fact. Polly Bartlett's ramshackle South Pass City Inn catered to miners and cowboys during the gold rush. The state wasn't yet fully incorporated, which gave her carte blanche
du bois.
Which gave her, I love that we both went there, to poison
Theater nerd alert.
Which gave her carte blanche to poison 22 unwary single men under the pretext of offering them a place to rest. Turns out forever.
Right.
A Gloucester...
They were very tired.
A Gloucester innkeeper named Pulto and his wife were alleged to have slain at least 7 luckless commercial travelers sometime prior to 1675, when their crimes were published in an anonymous pamphlet. One famous legend surrounding St. Nicholas, Bishop of Myra, the forerunner of Santa Claus, involves the medieval saint resurrecting 2 disembodied runaways murdered by a similar innkeeping couple in 15th century, now Turkey.
Oh, wow. There's one story, too, about it's in the West, and it was a couple and their children. And then they came to find out later that none of them were related.
Yeah.
And they all got away.
Oh, yeah. Fritz Harman is another one, a.k.a. the Butcher of Hanover, was known to have ground multiple victims into sausage, which he then sold to hungry repeat customers. And as recently as 1996, a guy named Joe Metheny of Maryland literally made hamburger meat out of prostitutes, drug addicts, and homeless people to sell at his roadside barbecue stand. So yeah, you might say the public has kind of a taste for this thing.
Seems very gamey.
But is the demon barber of Fleet Street really just so much tabloid bluster?
I thought he was a French dude.
According to, well, there is a French version of the story involving 2 men. But I tried to do some research on that, and there's very little that really? I can't even get a name.
Oh.
But I do know that the haunted house that Brandon and I went to when we were in Paris, the commercial haunted house, the year before had done one on famous Parisian haunted legends, and one of the little dramatic scenelets in the house was of this barber. Okay. But it's not clear whether that was an offshoot of the Sweeney Todd legend, or whether Sweeney Todd was an offshoot of that one, or whether they were both an offshoot of an older legend. It's really hard because records are, shit, especially when you can't trust the broadsheets, because there's probably truth in it, but...
Right. It's like in 40 years, if people are like, well, the National Enquirer said, but...
Right. So you have to really be able to learn, and research into that kind of stuff is really difficult, because it's so hard to suss out fact from fiction, because this was not an age, just as our own is turning out to be, that's not really good at sussing it out ourselves. So
well, because now, though... I'm going to take an aside. Now, though, people give equal argument to truth and fiction. It's like, well...
But they've always done that.
But I'm talking about an article will debate something with, like, does murder kill people? Well, yes, it does, but this article will debate that it doesn't. And
there's
it's that same kind of shit that happens.
There's a brilliant book. I cannot remember the author's name. She does the amount of research and work she puts into it is just mind-boggling. But it's called The Invention of Murder: The Victorian Obsession with tabloid press and murder.
Yeah.
And she talks about how everything you're talking about has been around for at least as that long.
Yeah.
And how it's almost depressing, like, oh, there's nothing, we're not doing anything new. It's just a new medium, but the same bullshit. People are still having the same, it's crazy. So getting back to the question, is Sweeney Todd bullshit? Well, according to crime historian Peter Haining, no. Haining spent 25 years combing dusty archives, obscure court records, and 18th century maps to uncover what he believes to be the real man behind the grisly legend. And if anything, truth is more unsettling than fiction.
Ooh, can you imagine how many fucking rabbit holes he went down before he got there?
A lot. A lot. Some of them literal. Curiosa and curiosa. The real Sweeney Todd, says Haining, was born on Brick Lane sometime in October of 1756 to a pair of gin-soaked silk weavers. As a child, Sweeney's father beat him mercilessly for the slightest infraction. By contrast, his mother doted over her only son to a point bordering on fucking creepy. I'm going to try to do this voice. My mother used to make quite a pet of me, Todd is quoted to have said later during trial. I was fondled and kissed and called a pretty boy. I used to wish I was strong enough to throttle her.
Wow.
The East London slums
that is
were
all very creepy.
Right. The East London slums were a hell on earth in those days, in which Todd's malevolence toward his fellow man stewed like cabbage. He obsessed.
So stinky.
He obsessed over the instruments of torture on display in the nearby Tower of London, where he spent countless hours to escape his miserable home life. When, during the record-breaking winter of 1768, his insalubrious parents skulked off into the night, no doubt in search of booze.
Sorry.
Unclean, dirty, drunk.
All right.
I'm just using words that would appear in a Penny Dreadful.
I love it.
Work with me, Jamie.
I'm working with you, but I also want to know what the fuck you're saying.
I'll just make little footnotes. I love it. Let me start that sentence again because I'm very proud of it.
Okay,
when during the record-breaking winter of 1768, his insalubrious parents skulked off into the night in search of booze, no doubt, never to be seen or heard from again, the burgeoning young psychopath rejoiced and apprenticed himself to one John Crook of Holborn, a cutler specializing in razors, and whose name, if you ask me, is a little too on the nose.
Dude,
the guy was known for being a violent criminal.
He killed his parents.
Maybe. 2 years later, at age 14, Sweeney was arrested for an unspecified
2
crime.
years later, so he's 12 years old. He kills his parents. This is where I'm standing by. Okay, maybe he didn't do it.
In your movie, in your Penny Dreadful.
But we don't find out he kills his parents till the very end. Like, we look at it
right.
like, so it's just real quick. Okay,
well, he sure as fuck didn't miss them, that's for sure.
That's right. In the movie, we find out his parents are dead. He's got to, figure out what he's going to do with his life. He takes up with this other guy, blah, blah, blah. Murders happen, the rest of the story. And at the very end, because we are like, oh, if his parents hadn't been awful and hadn't been killed from the very beginning, he never would have been the sociopath or the psychopath.
Right.
And then we find out at the very end, he was the one that killed his parents.
He was always bad.
I'm going to write that.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm not going to write that. I don't have fucking time, but I want to.
We could do it. So 2 years later, at age 14, Sweeney was arrested for an unspecified crime, likely petty violence or pickpocketing, and shipped off to infamous Newgate Prison. Behind the imposing stone walls, he rubbed shoulders with a felonious barber named Plummer and assisted him in shaving...
Barber named Plummer.
or a plumber named Barber. And assisted him in shaving the faces of men en route to the gallows.
Oh.
At some point... he was beaten within an inch of his life by inmates angry with him for trying to cheat a man they admired, a convicted murderer. Haining writes, quote, "The Sweeney Todd who walked out of Newgate in autumn of 1775 was a strapping 19-year-old boy with a grudge. The years had made him morose and resentful, and he would soon repay London for the violence it had visited upon him many times over." Sweeney earned a living as a street corner barber. In those days, they were called flying barbers because they just went wherever. Sometimes they would make house calls. More often than not, they would just have a chair in an alley and sit down. It's like a shoe shine guy, yeah.
Yeah.
5 years after
He's
leaving...
a razor at your neck guy.
Yeah, right? 5 years after leaving prison, Todd made enough to open his own store near Hyde Park Corner.
Well, that's nice.
Complete with an attractive young assistant he referred to as his wife, though whom he never actually married, and who, sadly, appears to have taken the brunt of his increasingly nasty temper. Now, profilers now believe that there's a connection between domestic violence and a later tendency to be a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
It's as though the killer engages in violence behind closed doors in his own private little kingdom as a kind of dress rehearsal for the shit he intends to do at large.
Which is why, like, people who are known to be abusive domestically and take that kind of violence out on people they supposedly love maybe shouldn't have guns. Anyway, go ahead.
Maybe. Or fucking kites, for that matter.
I'm sorry. They would outlaw kites before they would stop. Yeah.
They would, because there's no big kite lobby.
We're going to start one. Kites for everyone. The only kite.
That's from my cold, dead hands. Sorry.
Kites don't kill people. People with kites kill people.
People have died from kites. It's a problem in India where there's a bunch of kite festivals, and sometimes, like, the wires I guess the kites are made with wires, and people get garroted all the time. Or not all the time, but it's enough of a problem that it's reached me.
It's known. You know about it.
Now, Todd was jealous of his quote-unquote wife and made no bones about beating the shit out of her for any perceived infidelity.
Right.
In
well,
December,
bitch was mouthy. What are you going to do?
It's a joke. She
joke.
Dropped the shaving cream. In December of 1784, Todd finally went over the edge. An almanac of the time tells of a murder now believed...
84.
1784.
So So he's only like in his 30s.
Yeah, he's only in his 30s at this point.
Like
late 20s.
Late 20s.
Yeah.
Okay.
An almanac of the time tells of a murder now believed perpetrated by Todd before he was to find his signature MO. Quote, a young gentleman by chance coming into the barber shop to be shaved and dressed, and being in liquor, mentioned having seen a fine girl in Hamilton Street from whom he had had certain favors the night before.
A fine girl, a fine girl.
The barber, concluding this to be his wife, and in the height of his frenzy, cut the young gentleman's throat from ear to ear and absconded. While we can't be certain this was him, it does line up nicely with Todd's confession years later. My first one was a young gent in Hyde Park Corner. Slit him from ear to ear, I did.
That was good. That was really good.
Thank you. I'm rehearsing for Sweeney Todd later.
For the movie we're going to do.
Yes. Haining writes, London at the time was a perfect setting for Todd's misdeeds. Policing was in its infancy and human life was cheap. With the stench of poverty, illness, and debauchery enveloping the crowded city, Fleet Street itself was little more than a huddle of taverns, mean dwellings, exhibitions, and freak shows. Now, the exact location of Todd's famous Fleet Street shop is disputed. Haining believes it was at number 186 Fleet Street beside St. Dunstan's Church. Its position is in a direct line to Bell Yard on the other side of the church where the pie shop once stood, and the 2 points linked by several underground passageways.
Oh. Interesting.
While completing a new edition of his book, Sweeney Todd, The Real Story of the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, which is where most of this information comes from, Haining met London filmmaker Tom Witter, who added an intriguing piece to the puzzle. Witter had located old plans of the subterranean tunnels and was satisfied that this labyrinth made communication between Fleet Street and Bell Yard, where the pie shops once stood, more than feasible. Now, his first shop on Hyde Park Corner, and incidentally, it seems, his first poor wife, now forgotten, Todd, paid a £125 lease for the dilapidated shop on Fleet Street and erected the customary red and white striped pole outside the entrance. Now, in those days, barbers were less like what we think of now when we hear the word than a hybrid of hairstylist and kind of care now nurse, often performing rudimentary surgeries in addition to prettifying their clientele. This was conveyed by the design of the barber pole itself. The red and white stripes represented bandages. Between dressing hair and attending to minor bodily complaints, Todd was a busy fellow.
He was like a valet for everybody.
Kind of.
A valet.
A valet, yes. Yeah, not a valet. No, again, how they've fallen. Valet used to do everything, and now they just take your car and park it and take for fucking ever to get it back to you. Lining the windows of his shop were jars. This fascinates me. Again, it's so gross. Lining the windows of his shop were jars filled with coagulated blood and rotten teeth. The rather stomach-churning marketing strategy popular among men of his profession in those days, meant to communicate that here a gent could get an ornery tooth extracted or be bled to stave off a fever. An 1853 article on Sweeney Todd. It's like, well, look at all that blood. He must do this all the time. I mean, it works, right?
Normally when I say that, it's much higher. That's as high as I can go.
But today, it's like that was just your normal voice.
I can't do it.
An 1853 article on Sweeney Todd, written long after his reign of terror and published in the Gentleman's Magazine, described him as a red-haired hobgoblin, sullen and saturnine with thick eyebrows, a hard mouth, and pugnacious features. Another great word.
Pugnacious is great.
Yeah, his dark eyes agleam with greed and cunning. An article published
Cutting, I think is what he meant.
We'll get there. An article published in the Daily Courant on April 14th, 1785, before Todd's crimes became generally known, reports the demise of a young man who'd fallen into conversation on a street corner with someone presumed now to be our demon barber, dressed in the dingy whites of the trade. The two men came into an argument, the article says, and of a sudden the barber took from his clothing a razor and slit the throat of the young man, thereafter disappearing, and was seen no more. Slash. The similar murders of a pawnbroker, a shareholder, and a petty thief would be the last such crimes outside the privacy of Todd's Fleet Street shop. The introduction of his infamous revolving chair changed the game.
Oh, man, that is some really low impulse control.
Oh, yeah.
If you literally just slice someone's throat on a fucking street.
And now he's like,
these streets, it's not like they were empty.
No. But it was, but like I said, it was easy to get away with. All you do is run away.
Yeah.
And people were like, the guy, the one that looks like everyone else in the fucking street. I don't know. I'm not talking. Right. It was, again, like
the white guy.
Yeah. The white guy.
He's like real white, though. He looks British.
Now, this famous device, which was a seat on either side of a movable square floorboards, was likely inspired by a waxworks exhibition in Fleet Street, where frightful wax figures were posed on revolving mechanisms behind secret panels so as to spring out and scare the shit out of patrons. Perhaps reflecting back on his nights...
I hate it personally, but love it in theory.
Perhaps reflecting back on the nights spent wandering the Tower of London as a child, lovingly pondering the instruments of torture on display, Todd thought the mechanism he saw in the waxworks ideal for streamlining his homicidal impulses. There is, alas, only one surviving account of someone being murdered in the sinister chair, handwritten by a man whose father, a watchman at St. Bartholomew's Hospital named Thomas Shadwell, was murdered and relieved of his pocket watch. Before long, Todd grew dissatisfied with the meager pickings stolen from his victims, content to let the bodies pile up in his cellar, #BuckaCellar, knowing the native stench of East London would disguise the smell. He nevertheless knew this would only pass muster for so long. Eventually, even the nostrils of inured neighbors would alert them to what was afoot. Todd needed a better, more efficient way to dispose of the human detritus piling up. Enter the buxom young widow, Marjorie Lovett.
Marjorie?
Sometimes recorded as Sarah, the enterprising pie maker seems to have had a thing for bad boys.
Is her last name really Lovett?
Uh-huh.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's assumed her first husband met a violent end at the hands of someone he tried to double-cross. In Mrs. Lovett, Sweeney quickly found a murderous kindred spirit. Following a successful kill, it's thought the two would get a little randy before dressing the bodies for Lovett's legendary pâté. The bones were left to calcify in a long-disused family crypt under St. Dunstan's Church, which was, of course, en route between their two places of business. Their ghoulish hijinks continued more or less unabated for 17 years.
Holy shit.
The kill count climbing to 160 victims that we know of.
In 17 years.
How many cannibalistic meat pies that amounts to, I'll let you calculate.
Nope.
It's only fitting, however, that the pair would get sloppy over time. Rumors of vanished sailors brought unwelcome attention to Todd's shop in the form of police magistrate Sir Richard Blunt of the now famous Bow Street Runners. Blunt staked out the barbershop for months, even popping in for a shave more than once, though always with a companion.
Yeah.
Discovering
You got a buddy on this shaving trips.
Everyone got a buddy before we go into the barbershop?
Can you imagine the Navy guys being like, buddy, we got a buddy?
Yeah.
Look, if you're going to hook up with the hooker, that's fine, but I'm going to have to watch it.
Man, shave buddy means something very different on my Instagram. Anyway, discovering the mechanism...
Shaving a haircut. It doesn't mean anything. It's just how you say it. Shaving a haircut. Hey, anyway, okay.
Shave and haircut for free. Discovering the mechanisms of the chair, Blunt made a clandestine search of the tunnels below one night after Todd had closed up shop. Following the footprints in the dirt, he came upon both the family crypt, where all these bones were laying, and the horrifying back room of Lovett's subterranean cookhouse. The nightmare was confirmed. Todd and Lovett had been killing en masse for years and tricking the public into eating human flesh, all while making a tidy profit in the bargain, I might add.
Right. I mean, and I wonder what that percentage of humanness in the meat pies was, because it's very gamey.
Yeah, but this is, gamey by our standards.
That's true.
Meat was meat in those days, and it was a luxury item. Like, I've read somewhere that the average household, well, that's why spices and stuff were so valuable for so many centuries, because it made the shit you had to eat palatable.
Right.
So like salts and peppers and things like that. That was,
it's just like chicken now.
Empires were built on spice trades.
Yeah.
Like things that I can, like shit that I can go and pull a little plastic tube out of my cabinet in the morning when I make scrambled eggs used to like mean life or death to people.
Right. Even now, saffron's insane.
Truffles.
Saffron though, God. There's, side note, I'm going to go on this journey. Go with me. I used to work at this place in Oklahoma when I was in college, right after college. It was called the Pepperoni Grill. I don't know how good it is anymore. But at the time, they had this saffron risotto dish that had chicken and like asparagus in it and a little like light tomato like at the top. But the saffron risotto.
I would like to point out that we have come to this mouth-watering conversation through cannibalism.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Seems natural.
Where there's a passion.
Where there's a kidney, there's a pie. Lovett was arrested and immediately confessed. As Blunt prepared the case against Sweeney Todd, she drank poison obtained from an unscrupulous guard and died in agony, which kind of stalled the process for a bit. The prosecution overshadowed the Christmas of 1801. The Daily Courant predicted it would be one of the trials of the age, and so it proved to be, as comprehensive reports in the Newgate Calendar show. Subtitled The Malefactor's Bloody Register, the Newgate Calendar's weekly accounts of sensational trials kind of prefigured modern crime reporting, in which criminals are treated like celebrities. Todd was charged at the Old Bailey with a single murder, however, the only one they could prove, that of Francis Thornhill. The Attorney General for the prosecution described how Thornhill had been commissioned to take a string of pearls worth then £16,000 to a young woman in London on behalf of a friend. On his way to deliver them, he went into Todd's shop to get a shave, because he wanted to look presentable for this lady of society, and was never seen again. Todd later pawned a string of pearls for £1,000, hence the string of pearls version.
Yeah. Well, and you think too, when you get him on something like that, then you have more counts. It's not just murder, it's larceny, it's like federal.
Right. Well, and the reason they could only get him on Thornhill's murder is because they found a femur bone in the crypt under St. Dunstan's Church that Thornhill's surgeon recognized because it had a wound in it that he had treated. And he was like, that's Thornhill. And they also found...
I love that there's also ambulances and fire trucks going by right now.
They're en route to a basement somewhere filled with bodies. Fuck a basement. So that they finally charged him on. But the Attorney General for the prosecution did also add, we found clothing enough to have suited 160 people.
Holy shit.
And so...
They didn't, sell that? They didn't go...
They may not. They may have. Who knows? If it's anything like when I sell my clothes or give them to Goodwill, I let them pile up for a while and then take them. So this may have been only 160 people. May have only been his most recent, taking. If this has gone for 18 or 17 years, the jury conferred for less than 5 minutes before delivering a guilty verdict.
Yeah.
Pandemonium broke out and the judge struggled to restore order. Then, says the Newgate Calendar,
his wig came right off.
All eyes were turned upon the most dastardly criminal of the age, Sweeney Todd, who stood in the dock glaring at the foreman. The sentencing of criminals in 1802 did not require the judge to withdraw first, as it does now. He simply took up a black cap and placed it over his wig before delivering the death sentence, which goes as follows, quote, "You cannot expect that society can do otherwise than put out of life someone who, like yourself, has been a terror and a scourge." At 46, Sweeney Todd was hanged on a portable gallows in front of thousands, and his remains given to the Royal College of Surgeons for dissection, ironically, after which the demon barber passed into legend. Now, so that's the story. Only problem with it. Compelling as Haning's story is, his stubborn fucking refusal to cite references properly kind of undermines its veracity. Time and again, Haning, in his book, refers to sources and then neglects to reveal them. There's no index, there's no any of that.
Yeah, you can have that.
And as far as I can find, no one else in Haning's field has backed him up. He is, to date, the only modern journalist or crime writer willing to stake his reputation on the Sweeney Todd legend being real. Playwright Christopher Bond, whose 1973 play was adapted for the Sondheim musical, says flatly, "Sweeney Todd is pure fiction. No one has ever succeeded in finding a shred of evidence as to the existence of a demon barber." Screenwriter Joshua St. Johnston, who wrote a 1998 BBC drama featuring Ben Kingsley in the role of Sweeney, which is actually pretty good, admits that research confused him a bit. In the end, he says, it was only by visiting St. Dunstan's Church, where Sweeney Todd was meant to have hidden the bits of bodies that didn't go into the pies, that I realized he probably didn't exist, as there was nothing there referring to it. Now, to be fair,
why would the church?
St. Johnston's conclusion seems based on little more than simply not finding a commemorative plaque in honor of a bloodthirsty sociopath inside of a church.
Right, it's like,
Odd that he should expect to find one, I think, and it's not clear whether Christopher Bond made his comment before Haning's book was published in 1993. Perhaps Haning, if he's so inclined, will flesh out his annotations in a later edition. I certainly hope so, because if he did in fact spend 25 years researching this, only to invent most of it, he didn't really do much more than just recycle all the shit that all these old hacks have done since the broadsheet days. But if monsters like Fritz Harmon and Joe Metheny tell us anything, it's that a Sweeney Todd isn't so far-fetched as we might like to believe.
That's true.
I'm inclined to think there's more truth to the story than people...
Yeah, I don't think it started from nothing. I don't think it was completely made up.
No, because so much of the legend was preserved. In a time where shit got twisted all the time, it seems to be like, I'm thinking of this as a hack writer, as a yellow journalist. They would call them back then, and should still, I think. People that write bullshit stories and pass them off for true.
Or like something with yellow and I don't know, an explosion of some sort. But go ahead. Yellow bullshit.
Yellow bullshit. Yellow shitstorm.
There you go.
I think, in the time when these broadsheets and penny dreadfuls were so known for just creating shit out of thin air, I think the Sweeney Todd, like, they wouldn't change the names or the basic circumstances. They would maybe add the kill count, or maybe they would plot out the discovery of his crimes in a different way. But for the most part, the story was remarkably consistent, even with details added and subtracted. And that tells me that maybe there was a basic true story there that everyone knew so well that no writer was going to try to get away with, like, being like, well, here, attend the tale of Tweeny Sod. They're going to be like, everybody knew it. And if everyone knew it, there had to have been something. Because this was a time when crime was so rampant that for this kind of story to have taken on a hold of it. So I just don't think a fictional story about a criminal in a time where you couldn't walk 5 feet without risking your fucking life at the hands of one would have really caught the public's imagination. Yeah. Even with that kind of
Because, it was a contemporary of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. And as we've seen, well, not quite. I mean, he was about 130 years before Jack the Ripper. Oh, you're talking 17, right. Yeah. Gotcha. So, yeah, he's different. But similar area. Whitechapel's not that far from Fleet Street. Right. Yeah. And times hadn't changed terribly much. I just have had enough to drink that my 17 and my 18 look a lot alike in my head. And there's British history for you.
Queen of who? It does seem like it had to have come from somewhere. I also, you got to do the references, but if he spent 25 years, I'm sure there's a lot of I remember seeing blah, blah, blah. Fuck, I can't find that. I could see that perspective. Yeah, and I'm sure there's if you're writing a book, spend the time. Get that detail.
I mean, and of course he could be lying about it. Maybe he wrote it over a fucking rainy weekend somewhere in Yorkshire and was like, cool, I'll just say I did this. Who knows? But it's a compelling read. It's interesting. Right. Yeah. I think the story, I want it to be true. The demon barber inside of me wants it to be true. Right. But I think we're so accustomed to thinking of this sort of thing as melody. Did you know that even H.H. Holmes now is thought to have been fiction? But he wasn't. There's been a recent book that's come out about him. Mm-hmm. Where this guy has done a shit ton of research to prove no, this recent trend of people thinking H.H. Holmes was not completely fictional, but that his crimes were exaggerated.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but that this guy is like, no, everyone calm the fuck down. This happened. Yeah. I know you don't want to believe it was true.
Murdering bastard
who built a fucking castle so he could murder people in it.
I think the
and that was just one of the chapters in his fucking seedy ass life. Yeah. But so there seems to be a weird push in the past generation of people wanting to fictionalize true stories.
People can't be that bad. They wouldn't have been that bad. Yeah. I think the hardest thing for me to believe is that he killed men and not women. There's usually women that are murdered in these stories.
Women didn't come into barbershops. We didn't have access to them.
Exactly.
And he may have killed women, but
right.
Women were harder to have come by unless he killed prostitutes.
Apparently his daddy issues were over a bigger deal than his mommy issues. It's generally what that goes down to.
There was a detail that Haining writes is it was not clear the extent to which Lovett went along with all this because she was terrified of him, or whether she loved him and thought this was fucking cool. Because she's
for 17 years.
Well, she was she's also making damn good money,
right?
And she was so I mean it. What do you
and who knows? Well, and
she
there's
was
also
a woman back
who
in
knows
in
how
fucking...
he sells it, right? These are bad people, But also, who knows what she chose to believe because it made her life easier.
Yeah.
Because back then.
I love the way they come to it in the Sondheim musical where they're both just kind of like, he's a fucking vengeful, man who just wants to fucking punish London for everything he's been through. So he's like, I want to kill people because they fucking deserve it. And I like his whole MO in the musical, which it's one of my favorite pieces of theater ever. When it's done right, it's gorgeous. Yeah. But his character is more like driven by this need to just avenge himself on the world. Right. And he's like, I want to fucking burn it all down and fucking lock the door as I leave and turn out the lights. And Lovett's just kind of like, that's great, love. I just really want whatever you're into, that's cool. And well, let's make a little money. I mean, all these people are going to die anyway. Right. If you're going to why can't they serve? But she's kind of amorally pragmatic. Yeah. So she's in some ways a more interesting character because she's just kind of like, she doesn't have a bloodlust like Todd does. She just doesn't seem to be affected by it, which I think makes her more fascinating. Right. She's also a great comic character in that regard. Not that what she's doing is fundamentally funny, but it can be. Right.
When it's not real. Wow. I did not choose this quote after you did your... Yes. I'm going to say that again.
Just go with it. It'll be fine.
I chose this quote before I knew what your topic was.
Oh, no.
Which cracks me the fuck up.
Oh, no. Which tells me if I don't get it, I'm going to be doubly embarrassed.
Yes. No.
Yeah. You're going to laugh.
It's funny to me, and it'll be funny to you whether or not you know what the quote is from.
Oh, then I love it.
All right. You ready?
Yes. No. Yes. Yes.
You taste like burger. I don't like you anymore.
What?
You taste like burger. I don't like you anymore.
It makes me think of the Vine with the little girl sitting, looking out the window and creepily going, I smell like beef. I smell like beef. But that's not what it's
not
from.
Creepy. It's just
I have
he's
no
being a
fucking
dick
clue
and
what
he's
it's
breaking
from.
up with this girl that he hooked up with all summer.
I don't know.
It's Paul Rudd from Wet Hot American Summer.
Which I haven't seen, so I don't feel so bad.
Oh, you should see it. It's really funny. I
love me some Paul Rudd.
He is the biggest dick in this. He doesn't have the biggest dick. You never see it. But he is a dick.
In my mind. I'm already seeing it.
He's so funny. He's
it's like a dick so big he gets stopped at TSA.
Probably. Can we see your luggage, sir?
We're going to have to pat you down.
Right. We're going to have to look at this package. See what you're packing. We got distracted.
You need to claim, sir?
We always get distracted when Paul Rudd is involved.
At those gorgeous eyes. And he's funny.
So funny.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry. Yeah, so thank you guys. Do the things. Thank you for listening, first of all. We really appreciate it.
Oh, we didn't say, we never said who
Michael, right?
Michael sent in the cold open. So thank you. That was a really, really good story. I'm sorry we didn't thank you earlier.
Whoopsies.
Now we'll know whether or not you actually listened to the whole episode.
That's right. So there. But thank you. That was a great story. I immediately. So I was like, Michael, listen to your story. Yes. And you can send us your stories. You just go to the website, ghoulintentions.com. At the top of the menu, it says submit your story here. It's very, very easy to do. So easy. We read them at the beginning of this episode. We read them at the Ghosticles. Bunches of them. You guys, the stories are so good right now. Thank you. They have been for quite a while, actually.
And also thank you for some of the artwork I've been seeing.
Yes.
People post on social media dedicated to the podcast. Super fun, super fucking cool. So thank you. Keep that shit up. That's awesome.
And we retweet it if it's on the Twitter. That's Ghoul Intent, at Ghoul Intent. And then on Instagram, it's Ghoul Intentions. So we'll post some pictures and stuff like that of the Biltmore estate. For sure.
I've got some nice pictures of the Sweeney Todd.
Oh, yeah. Some
things.
We'll get those up. So. But yeah, again, thank you guys. You're amazing. And remember, it's okay to sleep with the lights on. You did that with an accent, and I did not.
I did a story on Sweeney Todd. You sounded.
Oh, do it again, and I'll do it with like a southern drawl. Okay, ready?
Okay, ready.
And remember,
it's okay to sleep with the lights on.
No, I did it yours. Let's do it again. Okay.
Yeah, you're doing it's hard, right?
It's very hard. Okay. It's North Carolina. Okay, ready. And remember. It's okay to sleep with the lights on.